in the script, you know, the hotel, it's in its heyday in the 30s, and in the 60s or whenever it is with Jude Law and Murray Abraham, it was, in the script it's just sort of in decline, and it's faded, and it's unpopular. But it was only from really traveling around that part of the world that we got this sense that in the architecture, in these renovations, you could see these layers of history. You could see a sort of, you could see the regimes in the architecture, and we sort of made the 60s communist, which seems like an obvious thing to do. For me, you know, we've gotten to this point where we do a sort of ultra-prepared thing before we start. We prepare it almost like an animated movie where it's even been sort of edited before we're shooting it with drawings and things. But when the actors come on the set, I always have the same feeling. They just take over and it feels like chaos. Well, on the second day of shooting, Tony's walking in front of the camera's following him on a dolly, you know, and he's walking along with his message saying something like this, and he says, "Oh, I have an idea," and stops, and these guys like tackle the dolly, and it just very nearly killed them. But it's what happens when somebody is naturally good. You sort of just forget that they're seeing this totally differently from what we are. You know, he's not only is this his first film, he's never had a job. You know, he has to actually show up for work in the morning. We really thought we were going to cast somebody from the Middle East, or you know, or possibly North Africa. That's where we were looking. That's where we could put our resources. But you know, just as a sort of a safety, we had somebody working in Anaheim, and you know, that's where we came up with Tony.